When I was a little girl, I would have loved to have had a mural in my room. As it was, I was stuck with white walls and brown closet doors. And so maybe that's why one day I was sitting in my house and decided that these closet doors needed a mural. And once I had done that, I loved the way they changed the feel of the space. That they took these just plain brown doors and transformed them into something else, something that made you think of something else, that world outside of this one that I'm always talking about. And it was this subtle change from just plain brown to color and design. And once I painted these, I continued. I went and painted murals on other doors in the home, other closets. I even painted our linoleum floor. You can do that, you know. I'm Sherry Burbach, a mixed media artist and writer, and when my friend came over to see our house and visit one day, she decided she'd like me to do some murals for her kids' rooms, and I loved that idea. How fun. So I immediately agreed, and we talked about the kind of designs she was looking for. And for her little girl, she wanted colors that were blues and purples, which were my favorite colors as a kid, right? And the kind of floral designs that I really like doing. So I couldn't wait to get started on this project. Whenever I do a mural project, I always start with a sketch. And that's what I did this time. So I sketched out something and gave it to my friend, and we talked about the design that she was looking for her little girl's room. I then take that sketch and I go to the hardware store, and having the sketch helps me determine how many colors I need and what types of paint colors I need to have mixed. And I always go to the hardware store and get sample cans of wall paint. So I use a paint and primer together, and that always for me helps get the right type of paint on that will stay on these doors and allow them to have a lot of wear and tear, opening and closing and that type of thing. But when you have a sketch, you have to be flexible because things can change. These aren't traditional surfaces. So, you know, things like if you're painting on a wall, you're going to have imperfections on an older door like I have here. You're going to have maybe dings that happen, or you're going to have the closet pull, you're going to have the doorknob, things like that. So when you're using the sketch, you just have to kind of be flexible. Almost instantly, when I started working on this mural, my sketch changed, and I'll show you why in a second. So I mentioned that I use wall color, wall paint for these types of murals, and I always use a paint and primer together. And paints today come formulated for all different kinds of things. I mentioned when I painted our floor, I used paint that was floor paint. And so what it does is it helps stand up to all the uses for that particular thing. So you can choose a paint that will work for whatever project you're doing. I painted that floor years and years ago, and it still has held up great. And that's with people coming in and out of it, walking on it. So I used a paint and primer in a Dutch Boy Forever interior flat paint. And I used an off-white color. Now you can use any color that you want. And then I chose colors that went in the mural and used sample size cans for those. That's kind of a cost-effective way that you can get the right type of paint, but with a variety of colors. So you choose them like you would for a gallon of paint and just ask them to mix it. And I don't know about you, but my hardware store is really great about mixing all that. It's really fun to talk to them about the project and get that done. Once that's all mixed then, and you bring it back, I start with a good base layer, meaning that I have just a thin coat of that initial primer. And for me, this was the off-white. So you put a thin coat on and you allow that to dry and cure completely. So what happens is you put it on and right away it kind of feels dry because it's a dry door. It's, you know, it hasn't had a lot of paint and applications on it. And you want it to still let it cure because the curing process takes a little bit longer. And what it means is that even though it might be dry to the touch, If you were to put a second coat of paint on it before it was fully cured, that first coat of paint would come off with it. So you have to let that whole thing dry and cure. And for me, I usually leave it about a day and that works fine. Once I had done the first 2 layers, then I went to my design, as I said, and I put that central bigger blue flower right in the middle. I always like to start with the larger elements of any type of mural and get those kind of positioned out so that I can then add the smaller elements. Once I had done that for this one, I looked at my design and I hated the green flower that I had sketched out. I felt like the remaining elements should be softer and curvier, and so I just ditched that green flower that I had in mind and instead went for the purples and added purple floral elements on the top and bottom, and I thought that that balanced really well. When you're working on a mural or any type of painting project, obviously it's the color balance and the design elements. So the bigger flowers, I added all of those and looked for the balance of color. And when I felt like I had that right, I just continued adding. Once you have the bigger elements in when you're doing a mural like this, then you can add the smaller types of little design elements, whatever they are. For me, I love adding little marks and little, flowers and little leaves and little things that are going to fill in this design in a fun kind of feminine way. And that's how I went ahead and completed then the entire thing. So as you're seeing me do in this painting project, I am doing a color blocking and line method. That's how I usually work on all my murals. Murals are something that, since it's large scale, you can use this method, this type of method, where you are standing back from it and your eye then fills in and helps determine shading. So you don't have to fill in every part of it. The color blocking and the lines do that, and then your eye fills in the rest, which is a cool feature when you're looking at big painting projects like that. So I filled out the color in color blocks. There are a lot of ways to do murals, and I've done them all different kinds of ways, but that's kind of how I like doing it on these door projects like this. And once the paint color was totally dry for those blocks of color, and once I was happy with the placement of everything, then I went through with black and outlined everything. You don't have to use black for that. I really like the addition of black for some of the floral elements. I feel like it helps the design come together really well, and it really kind of highlights the different curves and the lines of the flowers and things like that. And I used a black wall paint for this. When you're doing a door mural in particular, what I found was, I had this door was put on a table for me to work on, so it was not in place. And when you're working on a door like this, you take a step back and you look at your project. It's always important to do that with large scale painting projects because you're up close for so long. You want to take several steps back frequently so you can see the placement of items, you can see the color balance and all that kind of thing. And when you finish it, you do it with the vision of this hanging on a door frame and it being put in place, because it can look very odd, this door that's just kind of sitting there, and you might not like it, but once you see it in place, it's really finished out and it becomes then part of this room for this young girl, which I was just thrilled that she was happy with it, and it was a fun project to do, so it made me happy all the way around that I was asked to do this, so I'm grateful for that. So if you do a door mural in your home, tag me on social media so I can take a look, and I can't wait to see what you create.